So, Tad Roberts, very good to get a hold of you today, and it was a pleasure meeting you at the open house for Barefoot Wooden Boats there earlier in the month, and thought that we'd ask you some questions about the design for the Race to Alaska boat.
Yes.
Yeah, so what sparked your interest to start with in the Race to Alaska? How did you hear about it?
I heard about it virtually as soon as it was announced, and immediately thought about Quill, but he was working out of town or whatever, and so we didn't talk about it for several months, I think, after the race was initially announced. And so originally I thought of doing it myself, but then I thought, no, I can't do that.
Fair enough. So, what kind of boats did you entertain for this effort, and what were your thoughts around that?
Well, almost right away, my strongest feeling is that there will be a gate, you might say, in the Johnson Straits, and that long, narrow, probably windward passage against big flood tides will be the hardest part of the whole race. And so I decided that either a multi-hull or a planing monohull had to be, the fastest up that channel, and the rest of it is it's a free for all. You don't know what you're going to encounter, but that windward, um, beat all the way up Johnson Straits is going to be the toughest part.
Okay, that's fascinating. So, for a race of 750 miles, what you're saying is that you think that it's really going to be a race over just that stretch, and that outside that region, it's just going to be a sprint, more or less.
Well, I mean, the whole thing will be a sprint, you might say.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because it is a race, and you're going to have to go as fast as you can the whole time. But the conditions outside the Johnson Straits allow you a lot more freedom, because you can choose your own course, at least somewhat. Now, up around Bella Bella, it gets tight again, where you have to go through Lama Pass, but that's not. It's only a very short way, whereas the Johnson Straits really are, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 miles of narrow windward passage.
Fascinating. So, what do you expect for wind and wave conditions as being probable, both for that section and then for outside? So, you say that you expect a windward race through through the Johnson Strait. What about other conditions that the boat will also have to be able to weather?
Well, it's a crapshoot. You don't know. I've looked at weather history from Rose Spit, which is at the top of the Queen Charlotte, top of the Hecate Straits, and down further south, Port Hardy, and it's not flat calm, but it's pretty likely that it will be fairly light air. Now, there's always, there's some chance, probably, at least a 25%, maybe a 35% chance of a gale sometime. In general, you're gonna have fairly light air, maybe even very little wind at all, and that's where Quill, having lots of experience racing in these waters, knows that he's got to be able to row and make good speed, which is the other half of the design criteria for the boat, was that it had to be a boat that could be rowed, efficiently.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. So you think in designing a boat for this race in particular, that you've ended up with a fairly robust boat that will be useful for a variety of purposes. It seems to be a fairly it's a daunting enough challenge, this race, that you're forced to design for many possibilities, it seems.
That's true.
Yeah.
It is, again, the result of Quill and I, going back and forth on what our experience has been racing through these waters. We did the shipyard raid for 5 years, and I think Quill was in every one of them, and so he knows an awful lot about. I think he won twice, so he knows a lot about what it takes to move fast in the middle of summer here.
Fascinating. How seriously were you tempted by multi-hull designs?
Well, if Quill had said, I want a multi-hull, then that's where we would have gone. But, I really designed the boat for the client, so it was his call, ultimately.
Yeah.
As I said, I have no druthers one way or the other. I don't have a huge amount of multi-hull experience, although I have designed a number of catamarans. But, monohulls are perhaps where both of our hearts lie, so that's what we ended up with.
Yeah, I wonder, as this race plays out, if it'll turn out to be a monohull versus a multi-hull kind of a drama. That would be pretty interesting to watch, I think.
Well, usually in these cases, it ends up not being, either the multi-hull sail away, getting the right conditions,
right,
or the rowboats will pull away, getting their conditions.
Right. And whether we find somebody entering a multi-hull that's easy to row is sort of up for grabs.
Pretty hard.
Yeah, okay. So during the design process, what were your constraints and which parameters in the boat did you allow to vary?
Well, the boat it's really based on a previous design that I did for Quill in 2006, I think.
Okay.
A smaller boat, and that was designed to win the shipyard raid at that time with only a 2-man crew, over 100 miles of a supported race.
Okay.
So, they're stopping every night and they had food provided. So our first exchange, Quill asked me, can we build that old design and win the race? And I said no. It's got to be a bigger boat. It's got to be faster, and you've got to have a 3-man crew to go 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So those were the main constraints. Were what's the payload? That is, how much stores do you need? And then what's the crew? Well, 3-man. And whether that'll be enough to keep it upright is another question.
So you might need to add some weight and shift it from side to side.
Right.
Interesting. So how has hull number 1 been coming along, and have you tweaked anything during the build process?
Continuously.
Okay.
Continuous because we're only 100 yards apart. Every day I can walk over there, and I was over there yesterday, and we went over the latest problems and developments. And and that's the way it's gone all the way along.
Fantastic.
Right, very beginning. We'll say, well, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else, and we'll make the adjustment, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's very much working closely together.
All right. So, and on that, sort of as a related question, are there any like super secret parts that you'd like to divulge to the world now about how the boat has gone?
No. There's no real secrets here.
Yeah.
The real secrets, well, I think that the boat is really only about 30% of what it's going to take to win the race. And then there's at least 30%, maybe 40% is in the crew and what they're going to have to put into it.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, there's preparation / luck.
Yeah, and a little bit for the weather too.
Well, the way you win a long race is by dealing with the problems that are going to arise, and how you deal with those is it's preparation, it's seamanship, it's strength, endurance, all those things.
Yeah,
the boat is sort of a known entity once you've sea trialed it and got it running properly. And as long as you can keep it going, then but it's only a portion of what it takes.
Yeah. Do you think that like the last America's Cup, do you think that people will be learning their boats throughout the race, or do you think they'll have it? I guess it depends on which teams we're talking about. Some of them are well-established boats already, and in this case, how long do you think it'll take for Quill to understand the boat?
Well, we are hoping that the boat is going to go in the water the 11th of April, which is less than 2 weeks away.
Right. It's very exciting.
So, and hopefully he can sail the boat reasonably often between then and the start of the race. And then they will sail all the way from here down Port Townsend to the start line. So that's another opportunity to learn. And he plans on being at the time. The more they can train, the more they can learn the boat, the better off they'll be. But of course, because the race is 750 miles and there's all kinds of conditions to be met, they're going to be learning as they go as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Any predictions on to windward VMG for this craft? Now's your chance to get it right?
Well, I'm pretty conservative about these things, but all being equal, they should be able to manage 12 knots to windward.
Fantastic. So where are you going to be watching the race from? Because it's such a long course, it's hard to keep track of these guys.
I'll be watching it from here.
Yeah, and they'll probably go right by Gabriel on the way north.
Yes. I'll go down to Victoria and meet them there.
Cool. That's great. So we're getting a bit of stuttering in the video, but I think we've managed to capture most of it and get the essence. And I really appreciate your time today. And okay. And then we'll see you on launch day.
Okay.
Thanks so much.